lately, and to do that, I've been using this Ibanez RGDMS8 that I customized in the Temple workshop, and that's good for the left-hand channel. But I also need something for the right-hand channel, and this is what I came up with. This is an Ibanez RGDMS8. That's Roadstar guitar detuned Multiscale 8 for 8 strings. I've always wanted an RGD shape, but I could never find an 8-string RGD that had the look that I wanted. I liked this one when I saw it, but it did have a couple of features that I did not love. The voicing switch for some reason was a titanium blackish color, and the pickup selector was chrome. I remember they did exactly the same thing in the same colors on Tosin's TAM 100. I hate it. Let's do something about it. If you take a look down in the description, you'll see I've included this wiring diagram. This is what your RGDMS8 should look like on the inside. If you want your insides to look like they've got a Gibson 3-way toggle switch in them, then I've included this diagram also. And finally, this one. This is the one I put together for the work I'm doing today. Thanks for joining me. Let's start making holes in this perfectly good guitar. The first thing I want to do is remove these strap pins. They are the right color, but I've always wanted to try Jim Dunlop flush-mounted strap locks. So the old pins are coming off. These are the bits I'm going to be using to install the new strap locks. To protect our finish, I'm going to apply some strips of painter's tape. You can see that I'm folding it up at the bottom just to catch any drips. Now the guitar's all protected, and I'm putting a few drops of super glue in the hole. Once it's nice and sticky in there, I can put some stickies in there. These are just regular kitchen kebab skewers. Matchsticks also work. In fact, thinner diameter, less tapered sticks are much better, but we work with what we have. The vibe is to pack them in with glue and sticks until there are no more holes to fill. I'm giving these ones a trim right now just to give me some more access, and I'll add more glue and sticks wherever I see a gap. As always, YouTube makes everything look very easy, but you've got to pay a lot of attention to where you're squirting glue. It just takes one slip and you can ruin a guitar forever. So slow and easy is the way we're doing this. And we want to soak the sticks that we've inserted so that the whole mass becomes solid. Even though we're about to drill this entire section of wood we've inserted out, the reason we need it is so that this big, very dangerous bit has something to grab hold onto. Now pay attention everyone, behave. I'm very carefully placing the center of this drill bit where I need it to be, and going forward just a little bit so that that central spike gets the purchase that it needs. And now you'll see I'm changing position, and I'm going to change the direction of the drill bit. And this is very, very important. So I'm moving very slowly with the drill operating in reverse. And the reason I'm doing this is so that the bit can carefully scribe its way through the first few layers of the finish and essentially grind through it rather than cut. If we're cutting and moving forward, there's a chance for chips to occur, especially when you're working on the edge or the extreme edge of the horn as we are here. There's so much curvature moving around the bit. It's just begging for the bit to dig in and pull a nice big chip out. Changing directions now, moving forward, but again, moving forward relatively slowly. You can see the finish being ejected from the bit there and landing on the work surface as a fine white powder. And that gives me the confidence to increase my drill speed and push through to the depth that I'm after. You can see the difference between the wood and the finish on the work surface there. We're at depth now, and it's time to remove the painter's tape. That came out great. If this was someone else's guitar, I would use a very fine file and clean up the edge there. But because there's a lip on the insert, it really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to use that piece of hardware to center the good old StewMac black sleeve drill bit. And that's going to make sure that I send it exactly where I want to. Now I can take the whole arrangement out and drill to full depth without the sleeve. Once the hole is drilled, I use a little bit of paste wax to lubricate the screw, and then screw the strap lock base into position. That's good clean work. I'm happy with that. I'm glad I did that. I think that looks really nice. As always, of course, super important to keep the workspace clear. We did it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Next job, let's take care of these switches. Before we remove these old ones though, we have to mask up the face to protect the finish from getting scratched. Let's be clear, it's going to get scratched anyway. Just not today. That looks nice and safe. I'm going to firstly remove the pickup selector and then the voicing switch. Give the guitar a flip. And let's just enjoy the gentle waving of the leaf. Did you like that? Okay, we're going to get into the guts of this guitar now. So I'm going to remove the back plates, and this might be a good opportunity to mention. You can see my wire cutters there and how they're facing away from the guitar. This is a really good habit to get into, especially if you're working in tight spaces like I am here. Today's special, spaghetti. I made a really nice wiring diagram for you, and this is my very shitty one for me. The move here is to take the existing micro switch out and replace it with a new micro switch. They're both essentially similar or close to identical. They just differ in colours. So we've got to bust out King Ghidorah, the big squid monster here, to help hold our little pieces. And what I'm going to do is take one wire off at a time and put it onto the other switch so I don't get lost. Let's tuck in our switches so they can be nice and cozy. The first thing I have to do for this switch is bridge pins 3 and 4. Those are those two ones in the middle. And to do that, I'm just using an offcut off an old guitar string. So I'm sure you've got some of those lying around. Now you can put them to use. You've probably noticed I've left this little leg protruding on the left-hand side, and it's going through pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason I'm doing that is so the hemostat can pull my little bridging setup nice and tight against pins 3 and 4. My soldering method is simple. I use a very hot iron, heat up the terminal, just drop a little solder on there, no flux, and when it puddles, which it has, there we go. On to terminal 3 now. I'm making it look a lot harder than it is because my squid monster he's weak. He's weak and he needs to get his act together. That's probably too much solder on there at the moment, but as I pull the iron away, a lot of it will come away with it. I'm sorry for the quality in this section. My eyesight is very blurry, and I think that translated to the camera. Now I've removed that little supporting leg, and our bridging wire is complete. So as I mentioned before, I'm taking one wire off the old switch, bringing it over to the same position on the new switch, and soldering it up. I made a mistake here, which is familiar to anyone who's done some soldering. I closed off terminal 4 and I needed to put that black wire through there. All fixed now though. That's it for our direct switch replacement. Now I just have to situate it in its cavity and get it all tightened up. Look at that lovely color. I'm so glad I took the time to do this. Next up, we're going to do the pickup selector switch. We're going to take this beefy boy and replace it with this little micro boy. And I've also included, just as a reminder, a schematic in case you want a Gibson boy. It's very repetitive, so I won't take you through the whole process again. But I did find a couple of the wires for the switch were a bit short. So you can see me here just adding a little bit of an extension, and I'm using my hemostat to clamp those two pre-tinned bare wires together. And then I'll hit it with a soldering iron. And then a little shrink wrap jacket to keep him all cozy in there. Just grounding the switch now, and the electronics are done. That was so worth doing. I love it. Something I didn't love was the strings that came with this guitar, so I'm upgrading to these Ernie Ball 9-80s. Strings way too floppy. A fatter string will help, but I'm not sure how it's going to fit in the nut. So at this stage I'm not sure if I'm going to have to file the nut out a little bit bigger or not. This guitar comes equipped with locking tuners, so here I'm just releasing the strings from the headstock. any good tech will tell you when the strings come off, it's time to give the fretboard some attention. So after giving it a quick clean with a damp rag on a paper towel, I'm soaking in some lemon oil, just pushing it in with my fingers, and then transitioning to a trusty toothbrush. I want to get that oil into every little corner that I can. And then once it's had a minute to soak in, I'll wipe it all off. And while the strings are out of the way, I can clean the headstock and the body. Once everything's clean and dry, I can begin the stringing process. And it's with a great deal of relief that I discover Ibanez had the foresight to make the nut big enough to accept an 80. Just try cutting it though. At this point, I clip on a cheap little tuner just so that I can stretch the strings in and get them into the ballpark. As you can imagine, with an 8-string, this can take a while. Once the guitar is settled, I use 2 tuners, 3 if I'm on tour. These 2 Boss tuners, one of which is a bass tuner, which is really good for extended range guitars. I can see this neck is a little more bowed than I would like, so I give the truss rod a quick tweak, and luckily for me it was right first time. The neck's straight, the strings are on, it's all clean and wired up, and now I've got to do the intonation. That's where, using a precise tuner, we contrast the difference between the open string note and the fretted 12th string note. Unless your guitar has been set up properly and recently, it's quite likely that these notes won't match up, and so, as you can see here, I need to move the bridge saddle. And because nothing's ever easy, then the action has to be readjusted. Thanks so much again for hanging out with me as I teched one of my own guitars. If you got anything out of this video, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. This channel is not and will never be monetized, so I run on comments. I hope to see you next time.